It's basically just a series of things that I've done to my cars to make them more enjoyable to drive. Because my philosophy is not to be the prettiest car, but I'm going to drive it there. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to drive it everywhere, and I'm not going to worry about it. So that's kind of where I come from. The second kind of philosophy is that kind of falls in the same thing that the doctors say: do no harm. Everything I do is drill no holes, cut no wires, do nothing that can't be easily or directly returned to original. So that but that leaves you a lot of leeway. But it's kind of like, I'm not one to put a different engine in it, or a different rear end, or a Datsun transmission, or something like that. I'm more inclined to do those little things that make the current car work and operate better. There's a handout that starts off with convenience and safety items. The one place that I will violate my drill no holes is seat belts. I think if you don't survive, it doesn't care what you did to your car. And most car organizations for concourse or anything else will exempt safety requirements. I know the AA, the Antique Car Club of America, requires a fire extinguisher, and that's certainly not standard. But having a good 3-point seat belt is mandatory. A bunch of them are available. And on the 113s, there's good mount points. There's mount points for the shoulder strap up above. You know, I got mine from J.C. Whitney. You can get yours from almost anywhere, but that's important to do it. Headlights is another interesting topic. Probably less important with 113s than the older cars, but if you can't see where you're going, it's not much fun. If you have the European headlights, which I see a lot of European, you really need the halogen bulb, which is 55 watt low beam, 60 watt high beam. It really helps. If you also have the European headlights and they look dull, you can get your headlight reflector re-silvered, and that helps a great deal. And the last thing which I need to do is replace my headlight lenses, because they're right down in the bottom where they catch all the sand, and so if you look at mine real close, you'll see they're almost like sandblasted. And so if you don't have good clear lenses, that's one more thing that helps diffuse the light. And if you don't have light on the road, you can't see.
Do you have a number on this?
Isn't it there?
It says Sylvania H6024.
Okay, that's a different one.
That's a different one, right?
Yeah, that's the
European lights, Narva.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
And it's a P45 T base. You can find the Narva bulb at Don's Bulbs for like 25 bucks. The P45 T base, which I think is the same thing, for 14 bucks at Daniel Stern's.
Large bulb you're talking about, or that's a large one?
Well, it used to be the big round one.
Can you still get that one? No.
You can still buy but the big round one is what, 4550?
Oh yeah.
And this is 5560,
Okay.
which is more watts, whiter light. Good. For all you U.S. people, you use normal headlights. Headlight, 7-inch round. Buy them at almost any auto parts store. The Sylvania bulb that's listed is a higher power, whiter, brighter. Another option, which is what I have on my other car, is this, which is a replacement which uses a standard H2 halogen bulb. Just snaps in the back. This just snaps in. The difference is this is a Euro lens. There's a difference between a US and a Euro lens. In the US, the DOT requirement requires that you put light up on the top to illuminate the reflective signs up above. The Euro people say, I want the light down at the road and out of people's eyes. Much, much better, more light on the road. I was running across Nevada at night with 2 other 190 SLs coming back from Sonoma, and 2 of us had these, and one had the original bulbs. The original bulbs looked like the guy had a candle and he was following us, and these lights just illuminated the road, and it was black as could be out there. Good item. These are like 75 bucks a pair at Sylvania or Rally Lights or
Jim, there are several, besides Hella, there are several other manufacturers of this 7-inch sealed beam replacement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Marshall,
Bosch has them.
Right.
And they've gotten more, and some of the others have different headlight patterns, and so you have to be real careful. This, as long as you're 55, 60 watt, you don't have to replace wires or fuses or that sort of stuff. If you go to higher amperage stuff, you need to put relays and wires and that sort of stuff in. Some of the CIDs and the blue stuff, I think Daniel Stern or one of the guys has a good article on his website that says don't do it. That it may sound good, but when you look technically at what's happening, that it doesn't put more light on the road, which was the objective. But the idea is, if you think about headlights, that's one more thing. It's fairly easy to replace. It makes some real difference. This is another little goodie. It's a headlight warning buzzer, and if you've left your head, if you've done a die-hard test to see how long your battery lasts, this might have been the solution. I don't know if they're still available. I got this one a while back. It connects between the panel lights and the ignition circuit. And so if there's a voltage differential between the panel light and the ignition circuit, it buzzes. And it's one of these just little things that works. I've put probably a half a dozen of these things on everything from my daughter's Honda to other cars that didn't have them. I think I put mine where it picks up the ignition circuit at the radio and the panel lights off the clock, which was over there where I could pull out the radio and I had access to the wires and I got to it back there. In the instructions and all, what it has to do is connect them at the fuse panel. Well, I don't know if our fuse panel works that way, but you find the wiring circuits and connect it almost any place. Another interesting aspect is, and once again, I like to play. These are replacement LED lights. And this will replace most of your lights you can replace with LEDs. And why do you want to do this? Well, first of all, because it's fun. Second of all, it's exploring. And these are interesting because they not only have the bright lights coming forward, they have little LEDs around the side, and I can pass this around. And those are fairly direct replacement for most bulbs.
And they'll probably last the life of the car.
Oh, and not only that, but if you leave your parking lights on or something like this, here's a little bulb that will replace the clearance light. So you can leave your clearance lights on for months at a time and never wear your battery out.
Clearance light, I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? Clearance.
Side marker lights.
Side marker.
No, well, they're not. I don't know if your car has them or which of the U.S. specs, but in the European spec, they are required, if you park on the street, to leave a light on. And so they're called clearance lights, and they're very small.
Left or right?
Yeah, left, right, small bulbs that are fit in the fixtures.
Yeah, they're built into the headlights and taillights.
Yeah.
Position to the left.
Yeah, okay.
This is another really interesting one. This is a brake light, which is a 3-watt LED. A 3-watt LED. This puppy is bright. And I had put this on my 190 SL for a while, but then I found my cruise control wouldn't work with it, so I had to take it out. but these are,
Because they couldn't tell that it was drawing enough watts to...
yeah, because the cruise control has to sense that the brake lights aren't on in order to work. So it's but anyway, when you're looking at bulbs, you know, this is one to look at, because, and these I will bet are brighter. In fact, if we have somebody that wants to pop their, you know, one of their taillights off, we can put it in and see if it's brighter than the current taillight.
Jim, how much are these little LED 1157?
The 1156.7 are like $5.
Really? Not that bad.
This one is like 16, 18, 19.
It says here.
19. This is the expensive one, but it's different. This is a brake light.
Oh, okay.
Bright. Forever. And
100,000 hours, half life. That's forever.
yeah, here's a little one that is for a part of your dash lights. If you want to replace your dash lights with an LED that never burns out, it gives a little bluer hue versus the you know, the white hue.
That one looks like the size for the heater levers.
Yeah, I have not played too much. And here's one of those, the little festoon bulb. Yeah. You know, with LEDs.
Is that going to be hotter than the other one?
No, these are cold.
Those are cold.
They use almost no current, and your switches will last forever, and your light circuits. Again.
And Daniel Stern's got those?
Yeah, I think so. Super Brights is where I got most of mine. It's on the handout sheet.
Super Brights?
Yeah, did you get the handout sheet?
Yeah.
What do you have to look out for when you start ordering those? It's the base size. Is that how they spell them out on their website?
Yeah.
You know which ones to buy?
Yeah. Well, they're very standard. Bulbs are very standard. You know, anybody didn't get a look at these at one? While you're playing with those things, I got to looking at some of the 113s come with four-way flashers. The older cars didn't, and so I was playing with these LEDs and stuff, and so I thought, well, how about if I can make a four-way flasher? And so I wound up with some just relays using the normal flasher, and made four-way flashers. And then to activate them, rather than put another switch, I used my right side clearance switch, which on the 190 SL, you turn it to the left and then you have a toggle switch. On our cars, you turn it to the left, either one click or two clicks, and that determines which clearance. But that way you have a lighting circuit that is on when the key is off. So if you want to turn your blinkers on without your ignition, you can turn your four-way flashers on without your ignition. And then you can do it without adding a switch. Again, one more little thing to play with in the winter when you're not doing anything else. Okay, cruise control. Cruise control. Guys, how can you drive anywhere without cruise control? You can't. Yeah. This is a vacuum actuated cruise control. It's with shipping and everything else, the price has gone up to like $150. It's like $120 now. It used to be $105 or something like that. I've got them on a couple of my cars. Don't leave home without them. It runs on vacuum. It picks up speed off of, if you have a manual transmission, it picks up the speed off the distributor. So the distributor pulses, tells the machine how fast it goes. And then you connect one of the wires to the brake light switch, to the bulb side of the brake light switch, one wire to the distributor, then power and ignition. And then the control unit, the automatic, it comes with a magnet kit, and you put a magnet on your drive shaft that'll pick it up. And the reason for it, it senses the speed of the engine. The speed of the engine automatically accelerates like the car downshifts, it would turn itself off. And what that's intended to do is if you push the clutch in, the engine will start to accelerate and it'll drop off. Here's what the control unit looks like. The way I do this is I just bring the wires under the rug, up by the shift lever, under the rubber, and it just lays on the floor. And my hand can just drop down and catch it, and just turn it off, turn it on, reset it. This thing works good. Radios and speakers. My gosh, are there hundreds of radios and hundreds of speakers and all that stuff. The only thing I was going to talk about in this area, you can play games with newer speakers and hide them here and hide them there, and this kind of radio, and hide it under the dash or do it under the trunk. Car radios now come with remote controls, so you can hide it way under the dash and control it with a remote control. All that stuff works, but it's kind of like you got to look at and see what you want to do and how you want to do it. But they're almost unlimited, the number of options available, and I've been playing with that. But one of the things I just wanted to bring up that you may or may not know is most of the old radios came with an auxiliary adapter plug. The auxiliary adapter plug for in Europe, I think they sell them for like 35 euros or something, and you can get the cord. I don't know what Becker sells it. I think it's like 50 bucks now.
About that.
But you can get the easiest thing. Just go to Becker, get a cord. It will plug into a port on the back, the auxiliary port in the back. You can plug your iPod into it and listen to your music.
Yeah, that's right. MP3.
Or your MP3 or your Walkman or whatever else. It's one of these things that works good, lasts a long time, cuts no wires. The engine has to be shut off to hear it. Passenger side heat's not, I haven't heard many of the wives complain on the 113s, but one of the things that you can do if they do start complaining, the first thing to do is install cocoa mats. These are period appropriate. They are attractive. Great item, great item. And if you look around, you'll see them in probably a third of the cars here. They're not expensive. They cut down the noise, they cut down the heat. Good item. If you still have problems, the other thing is you can wrap your exhaust with thermo wrap. Available at any speed shop. The speed guys use it to get exhaust flow smoother out the exhaust pipe and all that stuff. I don't worry about getting it out, but what I don't want is a whole lot of heat underneath the intake manifold, and especially into the firewall and into the car.
Have you wrapped yours?
My 190 SL has been wrapped for years. My 230 is not, because it has the heat shield underneath it, and my wife hasn't complained. One more item that kind of moving, everybody ought to do. Replace your points with one of these thingies, Pentronics. It will fit directly in your distributor. It replaces your points and condenser. This is an electronic ignition which changes points from mechanical contact to a Hall effect contact. A better spark. It starts better. You never have to readjust your ignition. They cost about $100. I found it cheaper when I searched it. The 1847A fits directly into the 51 distributor, which is in most of our cars, I think. And I was amazed. I put this in, put it together, and I started the car, got my timing light out to check it. Car started up first, checked the timing, and it was right on. It didn't even change the timing when I installed it. Amazing item. It's 2 wires that come out of your distributor. They go on either side of the coil. You know, and both wires will come out the same hole. That if you take your points out and the stud that goes through to bring the electrical connection for your points out, you remove that, and everything will fit. The igniter does not come with this kit and this base plate, so it's not directly plug-inable. There's some advantages with the igniter too, whether you want to go to that hassles.
It requires there are special wires too.
Do you retain the ballast resistor if you do this?
Yeah. This is the competitor for Pentronics crane ignition. I have a bunch of old ones because I've had 2 failures, and it is very difficult to install correctly and get to work correctly because it's one generic kit for them all. This fits perfectly. This has an exterior box. This does not. As I say, I've had 2 failures on the road, and so I always carry points with me so I can always go back. But so I don't use these other than carry the box around. Because you change your own oil, then you probably care enough to put on a spin-on filter. The one I recommend is this one. It's the M1 208 Mobile 1. It will fit, I think, most for the 113s and others, but I think it will fit on almost all of the earlier Mercedes. As soon as we get adapters, we'll be selling these for about 90 bucks. For ours, we have, for the older units, we have the screen.
Yeah, the metal screen.
Okay, it'll seal here on this O-ring on the inside.
Okay.
And then for the others, it seals right in here, and we've machined the tolerances so it's close, and even if it leaks, it's not going to leak much because the differential pressure is only the differential pressure across the filter.
So
Same diameter. Otherwise, it runs into the oil pan. And depending, you can use this one, or Mobile also makes one that's about half an inch longer. For the 190 SL, which I've been working on, it has to be this short because the drag link is right underneath it. And but it's and the advantage of the Mobile 1 filter is that it is a much better filter than normal paper filters, and it's more expensive. But when you actually go in and do some research and look at the performance charts and the independent analysis people have done, this supposedly filters out 98% of the particulate, and the paper filters, it's between, I think, 88 and 92% of the particulate. And I've had people say, well, is that really important? And I said, well, I don't know. From the standpoint of, I don't know anybody who's lost an engine because of a bad oil filter. But I know a lot of people who care enough to want to put the best on their engine. And so if you're going to worry about a spin-on filter because you change your own oil, then you probably care enough to put on the absolute best that you can. And for an additional $5, it's not a big deal. Okay, just next item, I was going to talk about the SR 59X starter. This is a rebuilt starter. This is only available, I understand, in the States. This is a replacement starter, even though it's normally sold as an exchange rebuilt. It's a smaller starter with greater power, so it will turn your engine faster. It's a good item. Tires and rims, we talked about this somewhat before. The only thing I was going to mention was the aluminum wheels, and I've already seen some people around here playing with the aluminum disc wheels. They are less available than they were when I mentioned it 2 years ago, but they still are out there and are worthwhile.
Jim, you talking about the ones like the European 300D would use?
No. I'm talking not the bunts. Yeah, the like the 123 diesels.
Yeah, I'm talking about the European 300D.
Okay.
The reason I mentioned that, it's the only one that had 6.5 or 6 inch. 40D had 5.5 inch.
That's right. You like to get the 6, it's really hard to find the 6-inch.
Yeah, right.
But the 5.5 are sometimes available, but they're harder to find now than they used to be. Brakes. We talked a little bit about brakes and said in brake upgrades, there's a couple of things to look at. First of all, brake fluid. You kind of think, well, brake fluid's mostly brake fluid. And yeah, maybe, maybe not. Silicon, non-silicon, .3, .4. I have stayed away from the silicon because of some problems with weepage within the power brake boosters. But for some cars and some people, that might be okay. If you're not in silicon and you're not a silicon guy, I recommend using a racing brake fluid. ATE Blue is one of them that I use a lot. And what it is, the differences in the fluid is .3 has a boiling point, and that was for drum brakes. .4 was for disc brakes, and that has a slightly higher boiling point. Racing brake fluids has a still higher boiling point, and the one thing you don't want to have happen is ever have brake fluids boil in the caliper. If it boils in the caliper, you will have no brakes, you will not stop. Another thing to do is look at brake pads and friction material. These are a set of carbon Kevlar front brake pads for my 230 SL. The difference being is the normal organic pad has a coefficient of friction of about 0.35, which means for a pound this way you get 0.35 pounds that way, which is friction. The carbon Kevlar is 0.45, which says you get about 1/3 more friction for every pound you're pushing inside the caliper. And what that means is you get more braking with less pedal pressure, which means you can control your braking more, and if you need more braking, you can push a little harder. And what people say, well, I can lock my wheels up. What's more harder than that? Well, what I'll challenge you to do is try and brake your car slowly and lock the wheels up. Start braking and then start pushing and see if you can lock your wheels. Most likely you can't, because you don't have enough pressure to break the wheels loose. If you jump on it real quick, it's easy. You will find these are really amazing pads. You will notice it. And if so, ask Grenold, because he's put them in and he's convinced.
Is there any downside to using them?
Nope. Expense.
Great improvement.
Expense.
More heat?
How much are they?
They're about 2 to 3 times the price of normal pads.
Yeah, but they wear, I mean, we hardly ever wear them out.
Yeah, they wear about the same as normal pads. They are less abrasive on the rotors than normal. They're very gentle, and there's less dust than normal. Now, I was amazed that I called up Carbotech and they had them in stock.
Yeah.
And if you have Girling brakes, they have those. These are ATEs. If they have Girling brakes, they're in stock also because they're the same as XKE.
Yeah.
And if you have drum brakes in the rear, Porterfield will reline them for about $125 for a set of shoes, and you have to send them off because they don't stock them. But and I recommend getting your rears as well as your fronts, because while most of the braking's done in front, you still do braking in the rear, and you want as much as you can in the rear for balance. Again, I showed this the last time. Coney adjustable shock absorbers, which means you can adjust it. They're about $2.20 a pair. Available off the Coney NA site, delivered in a couple of weeks. You can adjust it as stiff as you want. It doesn't take very much to make them stiffer than you want, but you can adjust them so that your car really handles the way you want it. And that's a lot of what my thesis is all these things are help to make the car do what you want it to do, handle the way you want it to do.
Can you change the adjustment while they're mounted, or do you have to take them out?
No, you have to take it out, push them all the way in, feel the little notch, then you crank them either 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 1.5 turns.
Then you got to really pull to get it down. Is there, right?
Well, it depends on how stiff you have it set.
Yeah, but they're stiff all the way. It's really...
If you have it stiff all the way, it's a chore. Springs, I won't go into too much. We talked about that last time. John Olson sells his. I have the Eibach 300 pound per inch in my car, and I like that. They're $49 a spring. I have not felt a need to replace the rear springs or the equalizer. But once again, you start playing and you adjust and you make it the way you want it. The last item is, I haven't seen any around here, and I don't know if anybody uses one or not. This is a cockpit cover. And this just covers the cockpit of the car. And so you can, if you have the top down and you're parking someplace, or like right now it looks like it might rain or something, you can just throw this over and cover the cockpit without having to put the top up.
How does it tie?
And this goes over the windshield, has 2 Velcros that go around the stem of the wipers. It has a Velcro that goes around each door handle. Has a tab with a kind of a bung in it that goes under the trunk lid.
Oh, squeeze it.
And so there's no holes, no anything else. And I haven't used it, but I got this because when I found the idea, I thought we need something like this for the 190 SLs, and so we had one made for the 190 SL, and it's one more of the things we sell. I think it's California car cover. I'm not real sure.
I just got one. I think it's the same thing. I haven't tried it yet because my hard top is still on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It was a car. I think the same top is sold through several companies.
Yeah.
The California car cover, and there's like a carparts.com or something like that. If you're just looking for covers, you'll probably get the same material from different companies are selling it.
But they're like $85. Is that about what you paid?
Something like that.
Yeah.
$80 maybe.
85, maybe $90.
Yeah.
That would be great just to keep the seats cool.
Yeah.
And it'll keep the stuff out of the trees.
Keeps stuff out of the trees. Keeps the sun off your interior.
Yeah, if you have a nice interior protection.
Jim, so 107 cockpit cover from Mercedes fits okay on the 113, and it's a Mercedes part. And it's, believe it or not, at least when I bought it last summer, was not expensive, like $50 or $60.
Anything else? Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.